So guys, I feel pretty bad. I have not been given any updates or love to the T-Bird. So let's do that now. This is a 2013 Triumph Thunderbird 1600. So far, she has traveled 3,173 miles. It's about time for an oil change with this bike. And I gotta admit, I do enjoy riding this bike. I never thought that I would be cruiser guy. Really not, but this bike, it doesn't really fit cruiser for me for some reason. It is really a bit more of a kind of a power cruiser, hot rod style bike. In terms of power, that 1600cc parallel twin is, with the tune that's in the bike now, making around 90-ish horsepower and about 112-ish pound-feet of torque at the flywheel. It's enough to motor this big girl just fine. It's surprisingly strong, and with only about 5,000 RPM to play with, it is all the torque all the time. So it is lively, even at the weight that it's at. I think this thing sits in around 700 pounds with all the fluids, and so she's definitely not a lightweight, but when you got torque like that, weight, I mean, does it really matter? At any rate, now this bike is a lot of fun, but the other thing about this bike, just a quick observation, is that it handles well. You know, this bike, I will run out of lean angle before I run out of gripping ability. In terms of hitting sweepers, I actually have to make sure that I remember that I'm riding something that looks like this, because I will absolutely drag the heel of my boot if I'm riding with the balls of my feet on the pegs. I've ground the pegs, ground my boot, ground pretty much everything riding this bike just because it handles that well, and it kind of does get a little bit frisky. If you decide you got the zoomies, this bike will accommodate that. So it is a fun bike. Now, lately, this poor thing just cannot seem to catch a break. So I did put the stock catalytic converter back on the bike. I had a Remus H-pipe on here, and even with some tuning, the bike just lost some of that charm of that torque down low. So putting the catalytic converter back on the bike solved a couple of problems. One, well, it picked up the torque down low, quieted the bike down just a little bit, which I kind of like that with this bike. But with that other pipe, instead of going lean, which is typically what happens when you put a freer flowing exhaust onto any machine, it went rich, like it went real rich, and ended up fouling the spark plug. So in an attempt to just keep the thing reliable, fun, fast, strong, doing all of that, I went back, quieted the thing up, put the stock catalytic converter back on the bike, put the stock tune back in it, and then started all over from scratch. And now the bike pretty much runs the way that it did with the H-pipe. It's just a little bit quieter, and the fueling is better. So I'm stoked about that. So that's been handled. And so a new set of spark plugs fixed that problem. The only other issue that I have is I think I've got a bad valve up front. This front tire has been losing air kind of at a fairly steady state for seemingly no reason. I can't find any kind of a nail or a screw or anything that would cause it to lose air up front, but yet it does. So anyway, I'm gonna take this bike in for an oil change, probably gonna do a full year service on it. So I might do a full fluid swap on this thing, but while it's in, have that front tire pulled off, check to make sure there's nothing goofy going on in there. Probably just replace that valve stem. Yeah, it's kind of funny too. When I say this poor bike can't catch a break, I thought the other day that I had broken that front rim. I hit a pothole that would swallow a small mammal or swallow a large mammal or a small motorcycle, I should say. And yeah, that wasn't any fun. And then I dropped it the other day. Had to get a new turn indicator for it. So didn't do any damage to the bike, but did kind of hurt my pride. Went to kick the kickstand out from underneath, went to kick the kickstand out. My foot slipped out from underneath, and I basically did some kind of ballet, do the splits, gymnastic stuff, impromptu. And yeah, so picked the bike back up. Easy to pick up, by the way. Adrenaline, maybe. Anyway, got the bike back up. Everything was cool except for a turn indicator, so I fixed that. So, need to figure out why the front keeps losing air. And just ride this thing more. I was able to get the bike out for a little bit the other day, and not that you forget how much fun these things can be, but it's just cool to have the experience of having a cruiser like this, you know, something that's just happy as can be, parked at, you know, some elevated highway cruising speed, say 85, 95 miles an hour, and just soaking up the highway. That's what this bike is really meant for, and I gotta tell you, it does it exceptionally well. It's a shame that we don't see more bikes like this, you know, the cruisers for, how do you call it? Like, is this the cruiser for guys that don't like cruisers? I think that's a good way to put it. It handles well, lots of torque, plenty of performance out of this thing, does everything that you would want a bike that looks like this to do, and it looks the part too. Just absolutely enjoy just looking at this bike. The ergonomics are phenomenal on this thing as well. So anyway, can't say enough good things about this bike, but I gotta quit doing stuff to mess it up. My goodness, it's the hard luck bike out of the whole crew, and I just can't bear to keep hurting it. So anyway, we're getting her all fixed up. She's running great though, and can't wait to get her out hopefully tomorrow. Gonna get some miles on this thing. So just a quick update though. Post up your comments. If you've got one of these things, what all have you done to your T-Bird? Would love to hear about how you've made it your own. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks again, guys. Hope to see you on the next one.